Evil lurks in the shadows, striking when we least expect it. The Miyazawa murders exemplify the darkness that can invade even the most ordinary lives, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and lingering fears. In this video, we will delve into the chilling details of the Miyazawa family murders, exploring the crime scene, the investigation, and the strange behavior of the killer. We will also examine the impact of this unsolved case on the community and the ongoing search for justice. Prepare to be appalled by a story that seemingly blends shocking violence with the elements of the strange, dark, and mysterious. But before we dive in, some of the details in this story are extremely graphic and may not be suitable for all audiences, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. As always, remember to hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications to stay up to date with our uploads. Alright, let's dive into the video. On the night of December 30th, 2000, in the quiet neighborhood of Setagaya, Tokyo, the Miyazawa family, Mikio, Yasuko, their daughter Niina, and son Rei, were brutally murdered in their home. The attack was vicious, with the killer stabbing Mikio, Yasuko, and Nina, while strangling young Rei. In the heart of Setagaya, Tokyo, the Miyazawa family appeared to live an idyllic life. Mikio, the father, was a diligent businessman, working tirelessly to provide for his family. Yasuko, his devoted wife, balanced her part-time job with nurturing their two children. Together, they created a warm and loving home. Their daughter, Niina, was a bright and spirited 8-year-old, known for her intelligence and grace. A budding ballerina, she often twirled around the living room, her laughter echoing through the halls. Her younger brother, Rei, only 6 years old, had faced challenges due to a mental disability. Yet, in the eyes of his parents, he was a source of immense joy and inspiration. Mikio and Yasuko poured their love into both children, determined to help them thrive in a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Despite the hurdles they faced, the Miyazawas were a family bound by love, sharing moments of happiness that painted their lives in vibrant colors. They found joy in simple pleasures, family dinners, movie nights, and weekend outings to the local park. Their home was a sanctuary, a place where laughter and warmth reigned supreme, seemingly untouched by the darkness that loomed beyond their doors. The Miyazawa family was not just known within their household. They were a cherished part of the Setagaya community. Mikio and Yasuko actively participated in local events, lending their time and resources to enrich the lives of their neighbors. They organized community cleanups and participated in school functions, embodying the spirit of togetherness that defined their neighborhood. Nina and Rei were beloved by their peers, their infectious laughter and kind hearts drawing friends to them like moths to a flame. The children were often seen playing in the streets, their joy radiating through the quiet lanes of Setagaya. The family lived next door to Yasuko's mother, Haruko, creating a close-knit support system that strengthened their bond with the community. Neighbors often remarked on the Miyazawa's warmth and generosity, describing them as the kind of family that made their neighborhood feel like home. They were the heartbeat of the community, embodying love, kindness, and unity. On the fateful night of December 30th, 2000, the Miyazawa family was engaged in their typical evening routine. The air was filled with the aroma of home-cooked meals, and the sounds of laughter echoed through their cozy home. Mikio and Yasuko had spent the day shopping, preparing for the New Year's celebrations that were just around the corner. As the evening wore on, the family gathered around the television, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. It was a scene of normalcy and contentment, a snapshot of a life filled with love and happiness. Little did they know that this ordinary night would soon spiral into unimaginable horror. The Miyazawas were an ordinary family living an ordinary life, making their fate all the more tragic and incomprehensible. In the aftermath of the murders, the community would struggle to come to terms with the loss of such a beloved family, their innocence forever tainted by the darkness that had invaded their peaceful existence. On the night of December 30th, 2000, in the quiet neighborhood of Setagaya, Tokyo, a killer stalked the streets, his sights set on the Miyazawa family home. As the clock struck midnight, he made his move, scaling the tree beside the house and removing the screen from the second-floor bathroom window. With a single fluid motion, he slipped inside, his footsteps muffled by the darkness. The killer's first victim was 6-year-old Ray, who was sleeping in his room. Summoning every ounce of his strength, the assailant wrapped his hands around the child's neck, squeezing until life drained from Ray's body. The boy never had a chance to scream, his innocence stolen in the dead of night. Mikio, the father, heard the faint sounds of struggle and rushed to investigate. He found the killer in Ray's room, and a violent confrontation ensued. The killer, armed with a sharp sashimi knife, slashed at Mikio, who fought back with all his might. During the struggle, a piece of the knife's blade broke off, embedding itself in Mikio's skull. The father collapsed, his life ebbing away as the killer fled. The intruder then turned his attention to the women of the household. Yasuko and Niina, awakened by the commotion, were met with a horrifying sight as the assailant burst into their room. Wielding the broken knife, he stabbed them repeatedly, their screams echoing through the night. Nina, the 8-year-old girl who had dreamed of becoming a ballerina, was deceased, her life cut short by the merciless blade. As the clock struck 12:05 a.m., the Miyazawa family were all deceased, their bodies strewn throughout the house. Yet the killer, instead of fleeing, lingered in the home for several more hours. He raided the refrigerator, eating at least 4 ice creams, and browsed the family's computer, leaving behind a trail of digital breadcrumbs. Finally, as dawn approached, he used the bathroom, leaving the toilet unflushed, a final act of disrespect to his victims. The scene that greeted investigators the following morning was one of unimaginable horror. Blood stained the floors and walls, a symbol to the brutality of the attack. In Ray's room, the child's lifeless body lay in his bed, his face frozen in a silent scream. Mikio's body was found at the base of the stairs, his head split open by the sashimi knife, the weapon that had ended his life. Upstairs in the loft, Yasuko and Nina's bodies were discovered. The mother and daughter had been stabbed dozens of times, their wounds gaping and jagged. The killer had continued to stab them long after they had drawn their last breaths, his rage unquenchable. The broken knife lay nearby, its blade tainted with the blood of its victims. Throughout the house, the killer's DNA and fingerprints were found, a chilling reminder of his presence. His blood, too, was discovered, a type A that did not match the Miyazawa family. Analysis of this blood revealed a startling truth. The killer was likely of mixed race, with maternal DNA indicating European ancestry and paternal DNA suggesting East Asian roots. Shoe prints left by the killer were also found, suggesting a medium height and slender build. The police estimated that he was between 15 and 35 years old at the time of the murders, based on the physicality required to scale the tree and commit the crimes. The killer's right-handedness was evident from the wounds inflicted on the victims. The crime scene was a haunting tableau of the horror that had unfolded within the Miyazawa family home. The sheer brutality of the attack, the number of victims, and the killer's strange behavior all pointed to a deeply disturbed individual. The investigation team faced the daunting task of piecing together the events of that fateful night, sifting through the evidence to uncover the truth behind this unspeakable tragedy. As they surveyed the grisly scene, the investigators knew that they were dealing with a case unlike any other. The Miyazawa family murders had shaken the nation, and the pressure to solve the case was immense. With the killer's identity still unknown and his motives unclear, the investigation would require every ounce of skill and determination that the police could muster. The crime scene was a chilling example to the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk in the shadows. It was a stark reminder that even in the most peaceful of neighborhoods, evil can strike without warning. As the investigation continued, the Miyazawa family's loved ones and the community as a whole grappled with the aftermath of this unimaginable tragedy, searching for answers and seeking justice for the lives that had been so brutally taken. Ray, the youngest of the Miyazawa family, was the first to die. The 6-year-old, who had faced challenges due to a mental disability, was killed by strangulation. His parents, Mikio and Yasuko, had dedicated their lives to ensuring that Ray felt loved and supported, never letting his condition define him. Now their little boy was deceased, his life stolen by a merciless killer. Mikio, the family's patriarch, fought back against the intruder, sustaining a grievous head wound in the process. The 44-year-old businessman, who had worked tirelessly to provide for his family, died at the base of the stairs, his blood mingling with that of the killer. Yasuko, the 41-year-old part-time worker and devoted mother, was found alongside her daughter, their bodies an indication of the killer's unrelenting rage. Naina, the 8-year-old girl with a bright future, was the final victim. The clever and active child, who had been a year ahead in her studies, dreamed of becoming a ballerina. Her grandmother, Setsuko, fondly remembered how Naina loved to show off her ballet moves. Now those dreams were shattered, along with the young girl's body, a victim of the killer's savage attack. The Miyazawa family, once a beacon of love and joy in their community, had been tragically extinguished in a single night of horror. Their deaths left a void that could never be filled, a tragedy that would haunt the nation for years to come. As the investigation continued, the search for answers became a race against time, with the killer's identity slipping further into the shadows with each passing day. As the clock struck 12:05 a.m. on December 31, 2000, the Miyazawa family was deceased, their lives ended by a merciless killer. Yet, instead of fleeing, the assailant remained in the house for several more hours, his actions growing increasingly bizarre and unsettling. First, the killer made his way to the family's computer, where he proceeded to browse the internet. What he searched for, what dark corners of the web he explored, remains a mystery. But his choice to stay at the location, immersing himself in the digital world while surrounded by the bodies of his victims, speaks to a chilling detachment from reality. Next, the killer's hunger overtook him. He raided the Miyazawa family's refrigerator, consuming at least 4 ice creams. The act of eating, of savoring a frozen treat while his victims lay dead mere feet away, is a haunting juxtaposition. It suggests a killer who was not only unperturbed by the carnage he had wrought, but one who felt entitled to indulge in the spoils of his crime. Finally, as dawn approached, the killer made one last stop before departing: the bathroom. He used the toilet, leaving it unflushed, a final act of disrespect to his victims. It was as if he wanted to leave his mark, to remind the Miyazawas that even in death they were at his mercy. The killer's decision to linger at the crime scene has baffled investigators and experts alike. In a country where mass homicides are rare, the Miyazawa family murders stand out for their sheer brutality and the killer's bizarre behavior. Psychologists have put forth several theories to explain the assailant's actions, each attempting to unravel the complex motivations behind such a heinous crime. One possibility is that the killer felt a sense of ownership over his victims, a twisted form of entitlement that allowed him to treat the Miyazawa home as his own. By using their computer, eating their food, and using their bathroom, he may have been asserting his dominance, a way of claiming the family as his own, even in death. This behavior suggests a disturbing level of comfort and familiarity, indicating that the killer may have harbored deep-seated issues related to control and power. Such a mindset could stem from personal insecurities or a history of feeling powerless, leading him to exert control in the most violent manners possible. Another theory suggests that the killer may have been a psychopath, lacking the empathy and remorse that would drive a normal person to flee the scene. Psychopaths often exhibit a callous disregard for others, and the killer's actions demonstrate a complete lack of concern for the suffering he had caused. This emotional detachment allows individuals to commit horrific acts without the burden of guilt or fear of consequences. The killer's ability to remain calm and collected, even after committing such brutal murders, aligns with typical psychopathic behavior, which is characterized by manipulative tendencies and an absence of emotional depth. Some experts believe that the killer may have been a thrill seeker, someone who derived pleasure from the act of murder itself. By lingering at the scene, he may have been prolonging his enjoyment of the crime, savoring the fear and the horror he had inflicted upon the Miyazawa family. This perspective posits that the murders were not merely a means to an end, but rather a source of excitement and adrenaline for the killer. Such thrill-seeking behavior can often lead individuals to commit increasingly violent acts, as they chase the high that comes from their actions. Regardless of the specific psychological profile, the killer's actions point to a deeply disturbed individual. His ability to commit such heinous acts and then calmly go about his business, as if the murders were merely an inconvenience, is a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks within the human psyche. This detachment from reality not only highlights the killer's mental instability, but also raises questions about the societal factors that may contribute to such violent behavior. The implications of the killer's behavior extend beyond the crime itself. The lingering presence at the crime scene suggests a profound need for validation and recognition, as if the killer wanted to leave a mark on the world through his actions. This need for acknowledgement can stem from feelings of inadequacy or a desire to be remembered, albeit in the most horrific way possible. The psychological analysis of the Miyazawa murders serves as a sobering reminder of the complexities of human behavior. It underscores the importance of understanding the motivations behind violent acts, as this knowledge can inform prevention strategies and help society address the root causes of such tragedies. As the investigation continues, the hope remains that insights into the killer's psyche will eventually lead to his identification and capture, bringing closure to a community forever changed by this unspeakable crime. The killer's actions after the murders have significant implications for understanding his motives and the investigation. His decision to linger at the scene reveals a disturbing level of confidence and arrogance. The killer likely believed he would escape detection, thinking he could commit this horrific crime and then continue his life without consequences. His behavior demonstrates a disregard for the law and a belief in his own superiority. This confidence might have been bolstered by a lack of prior criminal history, or a belief that he could outwit the authorities. Additionally, the killer's behavior suggests he may have had a personal connection to the Miyazawa family. By using their computer and raiding their refrigerator, he interacted with the family in a way that implies familiarity. This raises the possibility that he knew them, either through a personal relationship or a chance encounter. Finally, his actions display a complete lack of remorse or empathy. He committed these murders and then went about his business without a second thought. This absence of emotion is characteristic of psychopathic behavior and indicates that he may have been incapable of feeling guilt or regret. The implications of the killer's behavior are far-reaching and deeply unsettling. His actions have left a lasting impact on the Setagaya community and the nation. The case remains unsolved, a proof to the killer's wits and the challenges faced by investigators in bringing him to justice. As the years pass, the mystery deepens, leaving the Miyazawa family without closure and the killer free, a chilling reminder of justice's fragility in the face of such a determined and unrepentant criminal mind. Before we continue on, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Okay, now back to the story. On the morning of December 31st, 2000, the tranquility of Setagaya was shattered when Yasuko Miyazawa's mother, Haruko, arrived at the family home. After several unsuccessful attempts to reach her daughter by phone, Haruko decided to check on her family. What she found inside would haunt her forever. Upon entering the home, Haruko was met with horror. Mikio's lifeless body laid at the base of the stairs, blood pooling around him. Panic set in as she called out for Yasuko and the children, only to discover their bodies in the upstairs loft. Shocked by the gruesome scene, she immediately contacted the authorities. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department responded swiftly, dispatching investigators to the scene. They quickly determined the family had been murdered during the night, likely between 11:30 p.m. and 12:05 a.m. The killer had entered through an open window in the second-floor bathroom, climbing a tree to access it. As investigators began their work, they realized the gravity of the situation. This was not just a home invasion. It was a brutal, multiple homicide, requiring extensive resources and meticulous attention to detail. The police cordoned off the area, gathering evidence and interviewing neighbors to piece together with the events of that fateful night. The investigation into the Miyazawa murders quickly became one of the largest in Japanese history. Over 246,000 investigators were involved, collecting more than 12,000 pieces of evidence from the crime scene. The volume of the evidence was staggering, yet it proved to be a double-edged sword. Forensic teams meticulously combed through the house, collecting DNA samples, fingerprints, and other physical evidence. They discovered traces of the killer's blood, indicating an injury during the attack. This blood, later analyzed, revealed a type A blood type that did not match any of the victims. Among the most chilling pieces of evidence was the broken sashimi knife. The blade had broken off inside Mikio's skull during the struggle. Investigators also found a santoku knife belonging to the Miyazawa family, used to kill Yasuko and Nina. The killer left behind personal items, including a scarf, a hip bag, a sweater, gloves, and shoes, all of which were scrutinized for clues. The police also discovered that the killer had spent several hours in the house after the murders. He used the family's computer, raided the refrigerator for food, and even used the bathroom without flushing. This unusual behavior raised questions about the killer's mindset and motivations. Despite the wealth of evidence, investigators faced a significant challenge: the lack of leads. The killer had left no clear fingerprints or identifiable DNA that could be matched to a suspect. The clothing and items left behind offered clues but were insufficient in identifying the perpetrator. As the investigation progressed, challenges became increasingly apparent. The police faced immense public pressure to solve the case, as the brutal nature of the murders appalled the nation. In a country known for its low crime rates, the Miyazawa murders were particularly shocking, leading to widespread fear and speculation. The media coverage was relentless, with news outlets reporting on every development, fueling public interest and anxiety. The community, once vibrant and safe, was now gripped by a palpable sense of dread, as residents grappled with the reality that a murderer was still at large. One major difficulty was the lack of a clear motive. While robbery appeared possible, the killer left behind a significant amount of cash, indicating the murders were not financially motivated. This left investigators grappling with why someone would commit such a horrific act without a clear reason. The absence of a motive made it challenging for detectives to develop leads or identify potential suspects. Theories began to circulate in the community, with some suggesting that the killer may have been driven by personal animosity or a desire to instill fear rather than financial gain. Additionally, the investigation was hindered by the Miyazawas having no known enemies or connections to organized crime, making it challenging for police to narrow down potential suspects. The family was well liked in their community, and their tragic deaths left neighbors in shock. Theories circulated, with some suggesting the killer might have been a disgruntled neighbor or a local youth with a vendetta against Mikio, who had confronted skateboarders in the area. However, these theories lacked substantial evidence, leaving investigators with little to work with. The investigation also faced logistical challenges. With over 12,000 pieces of evidence collected from the crime scene, the sheer volume made it difficult to analyze everything effectively. Investigators had to prioritize leads while ensuring no potential evidence was overlooked. The forensic teams worked tirelessly, but the complexity of the case meant that even the smallest oversight could mean the difference between solving the case and letting the killer slip away. As years passed, the case grew colder, and the initial urgency waned. Many officers who worked on the case retired, and the investigation was handed to a smaller team. However, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department has never given up on the case. As of today, the investigation remains open, with detectives continuing to analyze evidence and follow up on leads. The public's interest in the case has not diminished, and the community continues to seek justice for the Miyazawa family. The psychological profile of the killer also posed a significant challenge for investigators. The killer's behavior, lingering at the crime scene, consuming food from the family's refrigerator, and using their computer, suggested a level of confidence and arrogance that was difficult to comprehend. This behavior raised questions about the killer's motivations and mindset, complicating efforts to identify him. Was he a local who felt a connection to the family, or was he a stranger who had meticulously planned the attack? The ambiguity surrounding the killer's identity only added to the frustration of the investigators. Furthermore, the lack of eyewitness accounts hindered the investigation. The murders occurred late at night in a quiet neighborhood, and despite the police canvassing the area for potential witnesses, few people reported seeing anything unusual. This absence of eyewitness testimony left investigators with limited leads to pursue. As time went on, the likelihood of finding new witnesses diminished, making it increasingly difficult to piece together the events of that fateful night. The emotional toll on the investigators was also significant. The brutality of the murders weighed heavily on those involved in the case, and the inability to provide closure for the Miyazawa family and the community added to their burden. Detectives often found themselves grappling with feelings of frustration and helplessness, knowing that the killer remained at large while the victims' families were left to mourn their unimaginable loss. The pressure to solve the case became a driving force for many investigators, pushing them to work long hours and exhaust all possible leads. In the years following the murders, the case became a symbol of the challenges faced by law enforcement in solving complex and brutal crimes. The Miyazawa murders highlighted the need for improved forensic techniques and better coordination between law enforcement agencies. As a result, the Japanese government began to invest more heavily in cold case investigations, recognizing the importance of utilizing modern technology to solve crimes that had long gone cold. As the investigation continued, the public's fascination with the case grew. Documentaries, podcasts, and articles delved into the details of the murders, reigniting interest and prompting discussions about the nature of evil and the fragility of life. The Miyazawa murders became a cautionary tale, reminding society of the darkness that can lurk in the shadows, even in the most peaceful of neighborhoods. Ultimately, the challenges faced by investigators in the Miyazawa murders serve as a stark reminder of the complexities involved in solving violent crimes. The lack of clear motives, the absence of eyewitness accounts, and the psychological profile of the killer all contributed to the difficulties encountered during the investigation. Despite these obstacles, the pursuit of justice for the Miyazawa family continues, as law enforcement remains committed to uncovering the truth behind this tragic and haunting case. The hope for resolution persists, fueled by the memories of the victims and the determination of those who seek to bring their killer to justice. The investigation also faced logistical challenges. With over 12,000 pieces of evidence, the sheer volume made it difficult to analyze everything effectively. Investigators had to prioritize leads while ensuring no potential evidence. The killer's unusual behavior after the murders also presented a unique challenge. His decision to linger at the crime scene, eat the family's food, and use their computer and bathroom was highly unusual for a homicide suspect. Investigators struggled to make sense of this strange behavior and determine its significance in the overall investigation. Despite these obstacles, the police remained determined to solve the case. They interviewed hundreds of neighbors, canvassing the area for any potential witnesses or leads. Detectives pored over the evidence, searching for that elusive clue that could crack the case wide open. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the trail began to grow cold. The brutal murders of the Miyazawa family sent shockwaves through the Setagaya community and the nation as a whole. In a country where violent crime is relatively rare, the Setagaya murders stood out as a horrific aberration, shattering the sense of safety and security that many had taken for granted. Residents of Setagaya found themselves living in fear, locking their doors and windows at night, and avoiding going out alone. The once vibrant community spirit that had defined the neighborhood began to fade, replaced by a pervasive sense of unease and distrust. Parents in Setagaya became increasingly overprotective of their children, fearing that the killer might strike again. The carefree days of children playing in the streets gave way to anxious parents keeping their kids indoors, afraid to let them out of their sight. The Miyazawa family's school and community groups were devastated by the loss. Niina's ballet school held a memorial performance in her honor, while Rei's special needs program struggled to come to terms with the tragedy. Mikio and Yasuko's colleagues and friends were left reeling, unable to comprehend the senseless violence that had claimed their lives. In the aftermath of the murders, the Setagaya community came together in grief and solidarity. Neighbors organized vigils and fundraisers to support the Miyazawa family and aid the investigation. But the wounds were deep and the scars would remain long after the initial shock had worn off. Despite the passage of over 2 decades, the investigation into the Miyazawa murders remains active. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department has never given up the search for the killer, dedicating countless hours and resources to the case. In recent years, advances in DNA technology have breathed new life into the investigation. Investigators have re-examined the evidence, searching for any overlooked clues or new leads. The killer's DNA profile has been entered into national and international databases, in the hopes that a match will eventually be found. The case has also inspired a renewed focus on cold case investigations in Japan. The murders highlighted the need for more advanced forensic techniques and better coordination between law enforcement agencies. As a result, the country has made significant investments in crime scene analysis and DNA profiling capabilities. The Miyazawa family's legacy lives on through the efforts of their loved ones and the Setagaya community. Yasuko's mother, Haruko, has become a tireless advocate for victims' rights and better support for families affected by crime. Nina's dream of becoming a ballerina has inspired a generation of young dancers who perform in her honor. The Miyazawa murders have also left an indelible mark on Japanese society. The case has sparked discussions about the nature of evil, the importance of community, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable tragedy. It is a story that will continue to be told, a cautionary tale of the darkness that can lurk in the shadows, and the light that shines through even in the darkest of times. As we reflect on the Miyazawa murders, we are reminded of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment with our loved ones. The Miyazawas were an ordinary family whose lives were tragically cut short by a merciless killer, leaving behind a legacy of love, kindness, and resilience. If you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, then check out these videos on the screen now. If you have a topic suggestion, please send it to the email in the description. And as always, remember to like, comment, share the video, and subscribe to our channel.